Well, hello, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Grow or Die. I am Laura Chestikoff from Firebird Summit. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, Laura, what's going on? I'm Lawrence Henderson from Boss LLC. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. What's up?
Okay, so this week's topic. One of the things that's been an adjustment in my life is that my partner has now kind of found himself in a state of chronic illness. And there is at least 100 times a week, I ask the question, I ask one of the following questions. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can get? And the answer is almost always no. Thank you. I appreciate the offer, but no, there's nothing you can do. And that sense of like total inability to help at all has been making me insane. Like it's so like, as someone who is just used to getting shit done, because that's what I do, the fact that I'm in a state of perpetual like just helplessness to accomplish anything that's actually going to move the needle for him is like a humongous struggle for me. And it's been something that I've been noodling on a lot, is how would I work with the client on this, or how have I worked with clients when they're feeling incapable of helping somebody in their life that needs help. And as usual, it's always harder when the shoe's on the other foot. So instead of just talking about it theoretically, I'll let you coach me on this one this week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. And immediately what pops up for me, and because of recency, I've been working with a leadership team on what it means to create psychological safe spaces. And while creating safe space, the coaching, uh, the coaching task of holding space for another person experiencing something without our need to feel like we need to fix or impact outcomes. And so, Coach Alora, as you're seeking to help your partner feel better or whatever it is, what are you finding the rub? Like what's rubbing you when you think about that? Because I just hear hold space and just let them know you're available should they need you, and
So
let that be.
okay, so to your question, where's the rub? So I would say there's the tactical, and then
Yep.
there's like the just the more emotional and psychological, right? So on the tactical front, his healthcare is through the VA, and
Yep.
you of all people, I'm sure, have a very intimate understanding of the bureaucracy limitations that are involved with the VA. Um, those, because I feel like that is in some ways like the only thing I can affect. I feel like I want to make progress there, but as you know, that bureaucracy moves the way that bureaucracy moves. There ain't nothing nobody's gonna do about it. And so that I find is just fraying my temper on a regular basis. And I've spent a lot of time, put a lot of work into getting a handle on my temper. And so right now, the fact that that one continues to get under my skin, like for instance, this week, he had to get a new prescription for an updated pain medication. We live 5 minutes. He could walk to the VA pharmacy here. They dropped it in the mail. Again, when they put it in the mail, it takes 5 days. We're leaving town in less than 36 hours. It still hasn't arrived. There is almost no chance it is going to show up in our mailbox before we have to hit the road. We're going to be gone for 10 days. There is no way he can go without it. So now we're back to going to the VA and beating your head against the pharmacist's wall over and over again. Like that kind of tactical thing to me is so maddening because it strikes me as utterly unnecessary. And I totally get, it is its own self-contained thing, but I get aggravated as hell with the fact that that is not more manageable or movable than it is. So that part is purely tactics. The other side of that is Like he had a procedure a couple days ago and he was in agony in the prep work leading up to it and in agony for the post for, like 2 days almost. And like nothing I could do. Like he was miserable. He was just sick as hell, just absolutely just incapable of like even, standing for long periods of time. Like he just could not, and there was nothing I could do. And that part definitely made me feel helpless. I have a tendency of feeding people when I'm like feeling like the need to fix something, and like he can't eat because that's actually a big part of his illness is just he's not able to eat almost anything at the moment. So like I'm stuck with no clear tools to try to help assuage anything in the moment, and it's driving me crazy. So yeah, so it's both sides, the tactical piece, and I don't know what to do about that piece because
Yeah.
really, the VA is the VA, and you just got to go through
Yeah.
whatever you have to go through. The other piece is like I definitely don't feel equipped to handle, being told that no, there's nothing you can do.
Well, I would tell you, yeah, that first one, don't even waste energy there. Get your emotional equity back from dealing with the VA. It's just one of those things. I mean, again, we have one of the largest ones here in Georgia and multiple locations, but only one you could get physicals at. We have multiple large locations, but there's only one you could do an annual physical at. And you dang near have to put your bid in now for next year. like middle of next year for an annual physical. And so yeah, that entity is the entity. But I would say for you, because you're such a you're such a serving person and so loving and so caring, that just being rerouting what you normally would do is the opportunity to care in another way that makes sense, for him right now. And I would tell you, particularly as we talk about this with relationships and coaching and just how are we showing up for people, just again giving them that space and the fact that you're there. I'm telling you, but know anything about him, he is over the hills that you're just there, like and just like accepting, like, man, she has my back. Like no, like nobody is signing up for chronic illness or anything else like that. And the fact that you've been riding like to this point, he's like, I got me one. Like he's like, I stole her. Like and so for you, he knows, he understands, and for you as coach, you like, you know what, it sucks, but I'm gonna continue to let him know I'm here, however you need me. And I believe that's a testament to just the values that you have and that you aspire to. And again, that's family, but that's also the norms that you've created for yourself. And so, man, this is a good one as it pertains to people, whoever's listening, just things that you're dealing with. Just Allura, what are some of the things that you've been doing to kind of quiet the storm at times when you can't do?
So, uh, the thing is, at the moment, our situation is sort of like doubly compounded, right? I mean, you've
Yep.
got the COVID part that factors in on some level,
Yeah.
but even beyond that, like we're in a community that, I kind of feel like an alien in. So I don't tend to, even COVID notwithstanding, I don't tend to socialize that much because quite honestly, I'm afraid of running into people that I'm going to get into a political fight with here. I mean, this is the home of, I mean, it's like, it's like being out in the country in Texas. Like it's very, very, very conservative. Guns are their own religion, and screw you if you disagree. Like very, very, very divisive in that regard. And so because I have no appetite for that anymore, I end up retreating. So he's constantly been worried about me because I've been staying home too much, and that's definitely been a problem. Like basically I take the dogs out, and that's been kind of it. So I've been doing better about trying to incorporate some other things. I've started going to yoga. Figure yoga is a reasonably safe place. I'm probably not going to run into too many gun-toting wingnuts at a yoga class, so that's safer in that respect. But the reality is, it's been very hard to find things that I can do so that I get out of the house to help clear my head, because that's, I think, the first piece is I know I need to do that more. The other piece though is that, his how he's feeling is unpredictable, right? So he can be perfectly fine one day. Well, for most of one day. He wakes up every morning absolutely miserable, has to wait for pain medication to kick in the morning before he can get up and get moving. And so some mornings he might be able to get moving around 9:30. Other mornings he might be flat on his back until almost noon. It just depends. And so we can't schedule too much in the mornings. It's hard to plan around. And that part, again, makes my type A control freak, overly planned personality completely nuts because I don't know how to schedule anything or anything like that. And so that part has been hard. So I've been working more on like reorganizing, like again, back to tactics, right? Because I don't have a magic wand for the emotional side of this, but tactically it means that, okay, so I front load my day. I make sure that whatever meetings, whatever appointments, whatever anything I have, I try to do first thing in the morning so that, I am out of his hair and that I have something to do. So I'm not hovering like some kind of like paranoid mother hen. Um, and so that, I give him time to kind of work through, his pain while the medication kicks in the morning. And then whatever, we need to get done in the afternoon, whether it's his work or something, jointly or whatever it is, I kind of try to do that. So that helps. I would say that outside of that, the only other thing I've been able to do is find projects that have nothing to do with work that I can like focus on when I need to, because I can't, like, to your point, I can't change how long it takes the VA to get him an appointment. I can't change the fact that, we have to drive 5 hours to get him to the specialist that he needs to. I can't change any of those things. And sometimes all I can do is wait. There's nothing else. And as would surprise absolutely no one, waiting is not exactly my specialty. So I have to find things that I can focus on that are not time sensitive. Most work stuff ends up being too time sensitive. And so I have to find projects that are open ended that I can, when I have time or I need to, shift my focus, I can dive into. And then if I can't get back to them for a couple weeks, it's not a big deal. And I think those are probably the main tactics that I have been trying to kind of get built into my schedule and into my routine, because otherwise, and making sure that I'm meditating, because that's probably the other main thing that I know makes a difference. But yeah, otherwise, like that's kind of like the sum total of what I can do. Like I said, I love to cook. Right now, he can't eat. He's dropped like 20 pounds in the last 2 months because he simply can't eat. And he didn't have 20 pounds to lose. I've been trying to lose 20 pounds for like the last 30 years, but not like he can't. He just can't eat. So normally at the end of the day, I like to cook and do all kinds of, and hang out in the kitchen. And it's kind of pointless at the moment because he can't eat. And so, the tools that I'm used to relying on don't get to be applied here in any kind of way that's helpful. And so I've been struggling with new ones.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you, I was with a group of coaches yesterday, and the question came up kind of around this kind of same vein of what are we doing to continue to do self-care, different things like that. And I know kind of my two go-tos are of course trips around mindless nothingness, so whereas somewhere I can go kick my feet and swing my feet thinking about nothing, but then also professional development. And one of the things that I love that I've been doing over the past several weeks was the introduction to positive intelligence, and just how you talked about meditation, but introducing these moments throughout my day to do these check-ins, and they call it the positive quotient gym, where you have these 2-minute, 5-minute, or 12-minute exercises that you do just to get clear, and that was something that I was not doing as a part of my day. And my mindfulness was, hey, I need to carve out a half hour or 15 minutes to go walk, which was good. But what was happening, particularly this year, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been running 100 miles an hour since we kicked off 2021, and all on good things, right? As a business owner, right? The calendar, there's been no wasted time on my calendar. But I was needing to find moments to get clear before going to the next thing. And by adding positive intelligence or adding in something that helps you um, continue to build self-awareness, and that was really what this helped me do, is like, hey, I needed to pivot, I needed to do different things to support me being a great partner, interactor, coach with a client, and I think 2020 kind of showed everybody a glimpse in the mirror of, hey, what got you here won't get you there, right? You're always talking about, the Malcolm Goldsmith stuff, but it's like, no, really, in life, as life is going to deal you a hand, and how are you going to play it, right? And the old way of playing it is not really going to get you a win. But it's a pivot, right? It's a shift, and we're not necessarily have to be totally ready for the shift, but there are things that can help us prepare. And again, you mentioned a lot of things that I think people need to add as a part of their practice. And again, as I engage with people, as I engage with leaders, one of the biggest things is leading with grace, living with grace. And again, not that you letting anybody off the hook. And I had I'm Professor Henderson now, and as I think about my students at Morehouse College, and I'm like, man, I couldn't imagine being undergrad right now. I mean, they got thrust home, and I'm thinking about the freshmen who are now sophomores in my class, and they could remember this time last year being made to go home, like abruptly leave campus, go home, and just thinking about the adjustments. And then, you have some thrust back into the world that they were thought they were getting away from, and now being thrust back into that entire environment. And again, not judging the environment they're going back into, but now they're a major player back at home where they were able to be a student and everything else when they were on campus. And so as I think about that, as I teach them in leadership and professional development, one of the things is empowering the voice of them, and them hearing themselves in moments of perseverance has also supported their maturation. Because I told them, I said, there's no employer on the planet, no recruiter, no anybody that can even remotely tell you how to feel about growing up in during this time. Like there's nobody. And so helping people craft language has been another outlet that has been a pleasant surprise, that I've been supporting clients and students and everybody else with this crafting language around how they're feeling, how they're processing this season of life. And it's really been a beautiful thing for me to witness. And it's been very, I say, therapeutic listening to people tell their story. So when it comes to story and just something like this hits close to home, I believe, for a lot of people. And so what are some things that you're talking through with people around these same topics?
Well, so again, it's always enlightening when you go through something you've coached other people on before, and you're like, oh yeah, this really blows more than I more than I realized. Um, so I would say that the things that I keep, or the conversations that I keep kind of recounting, have to do with, a lot, to your point, a lot of self-care, right? You gotta, you can't turn yourself inside out and then still be of any use to anyone else. So if you want to be helpful, you got to take care of your own self first. So that part comes up a lot. I think the other thing is also around a support network, and I would say that's easily the biggest gap I have for me here, right? I have amazing friends and family who are extremely supportive, but none of them are here. And so that part is in some ways, that part I think is the toughest. And I don't think I've historically, when working with someone on these kinds of topics, I don't think I've necessarily um, recognized how useful that can be. And now feeling like I don't have as readily available access to it as would be helpful. Um, Now it's like, oh man, God, yeah, like I underestimated why that would matter. And so I think that part is another thing that I'm still kind of scoping out in my head, because, we're 3 states away from from my family and from my closest friends, and like on a really crappy day, like he has like whole weeks where he's just like flat on his back, or where he's just in so much pain that he can't do much of anything. And like I don't really have like any place to go with that. Like when I can't do anything, really the most I end up doing is getting the dogs out of here and going to the dog park. But like that's kind of the sum total of it, right? I don't have like somebody whose house I can go to, again, COVID factors notwithstanding, and be like, oh my God, like I just and just kind of get off my chest whatever I need to. So I think the support network piece is definitely something that I have increasing awareness around why it matters, and the fact that I have not done as good a job setting myself up for needing that. I mean, we just moved here. Like we just moved here in the middle of the pandemic and got here, and it became very clear that I was not in a setting where I was going to have an easy time meeting people that I had kind of, similar values with. And so that part definitely hampered it. And then of course he got sick after that. And it's like, well, crap. I'm kind of like, I feel so to that, in that way, I sort of feel like I'm at the bottom of a well and I just like hear the echo, but there's nobody else really around. So yeah, so I think that one is probably the biggest epiphany I've had, is just, that it's more valuable than, because I moved away from my family 15, almost actually 16 years ago. And I really didn't think I would want to move back. I really didn't, I miss them, but I didn't want to move home. Like it was, you, as someone who's moved away from their family, like you have that kind of like back and forth, right? You love them and you miss them and you enjoy getting to see them when you get to see them, but that doesn't mean you want to live near them, like, and so like I've had this kind of tug of war with myself ever since I left. And this is like the first time when I've had the thought of, God, it would actually be kind of nice to be closer. And I've never had that thought in the 16 years since I left. And so that part's another weird one that I'm still kind of trying to reconcile, because I didn't expect that one.
Yeah, it's funny. So when we were going through that whole franchise conversation towards the end of 2020, and the idea of potentially moving back home as a part of that, um, it sounded good in theory that we would be closer to family. But then as my wife was like, well, I mean, we like them and all, but so I left home in about the same amount of time when you left. I mean, I left 2003 and haven't lived near, like, the last duty station we were 4 hours and some change away. And that was the closest we had been in, probably a decade since leaving in 2003. And it was like when we moved back to Georgia, it was like, all right, we got it. We scratched that itch. But what makes it good, I think, for my wife in particular, because two of her sisters are here. And so she has family. And I've always been that kid. I'm the oldest boy. And I'm like, I love you, but I can go see you if I need to. And the funny thing, we were talking about, me and Japri, we were talking about that the other day. Like, I'm at the point now where, because of what's happening with me, I took a MBTI. So I retook, and I told you I'm a ENFP now. And my E is getting close to I. And as it pertains to me being able to ebb and flow alone or with others, and I really think my E comes out in stuff like this, in teaching, and engaging with others. But as it pertains to what fills me up, it's actually being by myself. And again, of course, I got my brother, that's my dog. I talk to him every day or every other day. But I'm really like, in this season of life, I think 2020 was like, it forced me into really saying yes to me. And again, not as a bad thing, because I was like, oh man, I should want to be around people. And my wife, who is like not that person, she's like, I don't need to be around nobody. And I just embraced it. Um, and it had nothing to do with any scarcity or anything like that. It was just the fact that I was like, you know what, I'm pretty dope. Um, and I could, and I love the whale thing. And immediately in my head, I was like, but you could have fun in a whale, like the echoes and like the noises you could make. Like I for real, that went in my head. Like, and that's why I smiled when you said it. Like I hope you didn't think it was weird. But
No, but
I
you
was
know,
like,
I think that's actually a really but I think that's very true, right? Like at different points in time, we want
yep,
different access and different,
yeah.
amount of contact with the people, especially I think the shared history, right? At times that shared history, and I think siblings are especially meaningful in that way for a lot of people. But sometimes that is really enormously comforting. Other times, like, okay, you know what? I'll see you at Christmas. Forget that. And I was always very lucky in that I either had traveling jobs, so I could go home and visit kind of whenever I wanted, or at one point I worked for an airline, so I get on a plane and go whenever and so like I wasn't somebody who moved away and felt like completely cut off because I had enough access to visit and things like that I can kind of get my fix in when I was feeling like I needed it. But yeah, I think now again, just sometimes it's just a given week and it's a lousy week and and I'll call my dad or one of my best friends or my somebody, but it's like it's not the same. And I think again to your E and your I comment, which is funny to me because I'm actually I'm also an E, but I'm close to the border. And so I do need a lot of alone time and like and it's always a weird thing for other people to gauge because they're like, oh my god, you're so extroverted, but dad, you need a lot of time alone. And that's why. And so it's one of those things that where right now if we do have a bad day, like like I said, he had a procedure on Monday and he was just it was terrible, everything about it leading up to and afterwards. Just we had basically about 5 days of just agony, and like I didn't have and I'm trying to not make him feel worse because he felt like he was physically so in so much pain, like there was I was trying to be supportive, but like I just wanted to yell at someone, right? And like there's not, I don't have a punching bag here anymore. I miss my punching bag, I gotta say, my heavy bag. That's one of those things I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of when I moved from Austin. But like that kind of thing is where I definitely feel like that support network being available in person has a value to it that I've probably historically underestimated. And because I was largely single and have been very fortunate in my own health and my own circumstances, that I haven't had a need for someone else to, for a shoulder to cry on in that way. I've been able to be that shoulder to cry on, but I haven't really needed it from other people so much. And so distance hasn't been a big deal. Or when something was going on, it wasn't necessarily acute or urgent enough. And so if I needed to, I could get on a plane and I could go see someone. But like this is such a chronic, ongoing situation. And again, it's unpredictable. Tuesday is a bad day, Wednesday is a good day. Who knows? Like you can't, there's no way to parse it. And so yeah, so I think the support network is not something that I have a way of cultivating here, especially now that we know we're leaving in a few months. So it's just kind of I feel like I'm in limbo on that one, and I'm trying to come up with like band-aids around it. So far, nothing's been fantastic.
Yeah, and I think a takeaway that I believe that I'm picking up for from you and kind of as I think about the things I've shared thus far is just getting okay with what understanding what our community looks like and who do we have to reach out to for those outlets. Because I know my my community and I'm thinking about myself and like you said I've been notoriously bad at reaching out when I'm having a tough time, and it's actually been others that I've engaged with on calls that have kind of called me out, like when they see something going on or they see something wrong. And I think that's a testament to how intentional I've been with the type of people I want to surround myself with. in the community of coaches and different things like that, that there's a level of skill set um, from the people I want to surround myself with, that they just kind of have an intuition. They just kind of have a skill set, and they've built a muscle to say, "Hey, I'm here if you need me," right? And I think for a lot of for strong, particularly strong people like us, um, having a community of people like that around us um, is necessary. And so on video, on live, with this podcast, Laura, no, you have your community, because this is what we need from each other. And I think more than ever, this being the norm, that we're available. We make ourselves available to process this. And as a vet, I make myself available to your partner as just another battle buddy, or anybody else. And again, I don't necessarily have to understand what he's going through. Just know that I'm there
Yeah.
as an option. So
Nope. And that's exactly right. And that's good. So, okay. Well, and so, okay. So that's actually, I feel like we kind of hit a natural conclusion for that one. That was pretty good.
oh
So, okay. Any last thoughts or considerations to keep in mind?
yeah. So I found this little sign behind me that I pulled out, and it was something I used at a conference. And I looked at it and I was like, I'm going to put that behind me. Hello, my name is Change. And just right under, we're ready. Are you?
Yeah, I was noticing that. I like
Yeah.
it.
It's just,
Very good.
that's the message.
That is the message, as always. And you don't get to plan it, you don't get to control it. You just got to figure out how to roll with it. All righty, my friend. Then I will see you in 2 weeks when I get back from my trip.
All right. Safe travels, and I will talk to you soon.
Have a great week.
You
Bye.
too.